are back to attend to the main matter. Probably the witnesses have even gone to the great beyond, or they have changed places unknown to anybody. So the complainant will, at the end of the day, remain without any solace, no source of comfort, because his grievances have not been addressed by the very system which he thinks he should trust. But that attitude is now being changed through active legislation, which have been blessed by the pronouncements of the Supreme Court, meaning everybody is bound. Once you have any interlocutory issue, the matter will not be stayed. The main matter will not suffer any delay. You will take your ruling along with the decision in the main matter, period. So the idea is to block that hole. Those who want to be mischief, to delay and frustrate cases, now are being told by the very system that has gone some level of reforms, and the reforms are continuing. And this is also both in criminal and civil matters. Those days are gone when people would simply raise interlocutory issue, either in criminal or civil matter, and they go to sleep thinking that they have killed the matter. No, there are these reforms in the system, and then the attitude is forced to change. You can't. I have gone around and I have spoken to quite a number of my colleagues who have not adopted the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. You find a lot of these people who we meet behind bars as a result of holding charge. And we have spoken to them and they are responding. So the important thing is the system is being reformed and attitude is compelled to change through such reforms. So by that, we are now blocking the very causative factors that bring in congestion in the prison. Of course, sometimes you have sudden situation of crisis and arrests are made in order to bring in some stability. Yes. And within that period, you find that they are taken into the correctional service centers. But it's just a question of lightning speed. You find that they are not there again. Like, for instance, the NSAS thing, all right? I remember when I was called middle of the night, a lot of the arrests, and I had to send magistrates to go even and sit by the police station to do the needful. So you can see we are really up and doing and very, very sensitive and responsive to what the demand of the society is.
Very soon, the Presidential Committee on Reforms and Decongestion of our custodial centers will be submitting their report to the President. But then, on this program, we have given you an inkling into what they will be telling the President and what Nigeria should be doing to consolidate on making our correctional centers truly correctional and not just custodial. Of course, you have seen that along the line, more legislations have been introduced as to guide courts in passing 10 sentences, just like the sentencing guideline, which would give judges guidelines as to how to pass sentences. Before now, Nigeria has known only custodial measures. Now we have non-custodial measures, and that would help in decongesting prisons and changing and reforming Nigerians who are tended towards crime. Thank you for being part of the scale today. More issues keep evolving in our society, and the scale will always be on top of them to bring you areas that would reform our justice sector. Thank you, and we'll see you again.
nation, different tribes and languages, yet we are united in our diversity. All over the world, Nigerians are known to be very hardworking and resilient people. In our history as a nation, there have been many storms, but just like the eagle, we always soar very high above the storms. Together, as a nation, we stood against Ebola virus disease in 2014, and we conquered. Together as a nation, we shall stand against COVID-19, and we shall surely triumph. Let's do our part as citizens, obey the health authorities, stay at home, practice social distancing and proper hygiene. When this is over, and very soon it will be, we shall dance again at the Calabar Carnival, the Eyo Festival, Celebration, Ojudioba Festival, and Aragongo Festival. When this is over, and very soon it will, we shall flock the beaches again. We shall attend our music concerts again. We shall invite the world once again at the Lagos City Marathon. When this is over, and very soon it will be, we can return to our hustle and bustle. We will gather at our churches and mosques. We shall return to our schools and institutions. Our hope is alive. We are Nigeria, and together we shall rise again. Nigeria Film Corporation, powering possibilities.
Welcome to Abuja, the place that unites Nigeria.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain.
President Buhari resuscitates National Young Farmers Scheme after 20 years in limbo.
It is my expectation that the scheme will take in young Nigerian graduates and non-graduates alike and be part of this government's effort to reduce unemployment.
Information and Culture Minister presents budget proposal of 947 million naira for 2021.
The United Nations reiterates commitment to resettle internally displaced persons.
Requires support, and that support needs to come in terms of security, so that we have a better security situation.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the Judicial Panels of Inquiry on Police Brutality.
One of the main demands of the NSAS protesters who took to the streets in protest against police brutality last month was the establishment of an independent body to oversee investigation and prosecution of all reported cases of police misconduct, brutality, and abuse against Nigerians.
And one of the federal government's responses to those demands was to mandate all 36 state governors and the Federal Capital Territory Minister to set up judicial panels of inquiry to receive and investigate complaints of police brutality and other alleged forms of violence by the now defunct SARS and other tactical units of the police.
And truly, Kingsley, and less than 2 weeks after the government's directive, an impressive number of states had constituted judicial panels of inquiry. Members of the panels ranged from 17, like that of Abuja and Imo states, to 5 members in the case of Bayelsa State.
And Lagos State, of course, was one of the first to set up such a judicial panel of inquiry. And beyond setting up the panel, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu also established a 200 million naira fund for compensation to families and individuals who have been victimized by officers of the disbanded SARS and other police tactical units.
And taking a cue from the Lagos State government, Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State also announced the establishment of Victims' Compensation Fund to enable speedy payment of monetary compensation to deserving victims, as well as enable the panel to respond appropriately to the urgent needs of victims of rights violations.
Well, the panels of inquiry encourage anyone allegedly brutalized by the police, particularly disbanded SARS unit, including the families of those who have died, either as a result of brutality or otherwise, to present their cases before the panels in the 26 states that have so far set up such commissions of inquiry, so that the complainants or the petitioners can look forward to some form of justice.
So what is the statutory provision enabling the constitution of these judicial panels of inquiry on police brutality? What are the goals of these panels and subsequently the end result? We will be probing these issues and more with guests in the course of the program. And it is on this note, I welcome you to this midweek edition of the program. I am Yusuf Nadab Usman.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. I join my colleague Nadabo to also welcome you to the program. As always, we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And in the course of the program, we have our supplementary segments, and these include newspaper review, business, and others. For now, let's join Chimaobi Water for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Chimaobi.
Hello, good morning, and thanks for joining us on the morning news. After nearly 20 years in limbo, the National Agricultural Land Development Authority, established in 1992 to bring development to rural communities through agriculture, has been resuscitated. At the formal relaunch of the program, President Muhammadu Buhari also flagged off the National Young Farmers Scheme designed to engage, encourage, and attract Nigerians into the full value chain of agribusiness.
It is my expectation that the scheme will take in young Nigerian graduates and non-graduates alike and be part of this government's effort to reduce unemployment and contribute to the regeneration of agriculture and our economy.
And the Senate has continued to stress the need for ministries, departments and agencies of government to complement the policies of the federal government on social safety nets, especially in 2021. At the 2021 budget defense by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, the Senate Committee on Diaspora and Non-Governmental Organizations urged them to expand their scope of operation to include facilitation of employment opportunities for Nigerians abroad.
Commission can also come up with a database of Nigerians who are interested in working outside the country. Today now we received a group of an NGO that wants to look at the issue of Nigerians in prisons abroad. There's a lot to do about welfare of our people abroad. We're getting to a state where Nigerians all over the world, the respect is coming back.
And in the meantime, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has presented a budget proposal of 947 million for the year 2021 to run the culture and tourism sector of his ministry.
Meeting at UNWTO, ATA, UNESCO, African Union, ECOWAS conferences, AU Ministers of Culture conferences, etc. And we are budgeting 88 million. Participation in UNESCO general conferences. These are statutory conferences. We are proposing 31,519,517 naira.
And a human rights activist, Mr. Kenechukwu Okeke, has initiated a criminal proceedings at the FCT Chief Magistrate Court, Abuja, seeking prosecution of NSAS promoters and rioters whose actions led to wanton loss of lives and colossal damages to both public and private properties in some parts of the country. The complainant, in the affidavit he disposed to stated that as a responsible citizen of Federal Republic of Nigeria, he is committed to peace, security and good governance in any part of the country while promoting the rule of law, accountability and protecting the socio-economic as well as fundamental rights of Nigerians. In the verifying affidavit posted on his Twitter handle, the complainant listed 28 persons as defendants. And the Group Managing Director of NNPC, Mele Kyari, is assuring the public that the corporation has emplaced a stock of over 2.9 billion litres of petrol to guarantee seamless movement of people, goods and services across the country in the forthcoming Christmas season and beyond. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, dismissed mounting insinuation of possible scarcity of petroleum products following ongoing disagreement between the federal government and members of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association, PENGASSN, on the implementation of the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, IPPIS. A statement by Dr. Kenny Obateru, Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs Division, NNPC, quoted Mele Kyari, the Group Managing Director, as saying the industrial action embarked upon by PENGASSN would not lead to scarcity of petrol, as all fuel stations and petrol depots in the country have enough stock of products to service consumers and are open for business. Now, the United Nations has reiterated commitment to resettlement of internally displaced persons in their ancestral homes to enable them return to normal life. The Deputy UN Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, stressed the position of the United Nations while briefing newsmen shortly on arrival from Banki Town in Bama local government area of Borno State, housing internally displaced persons as part of her official engagement in the country.
Support, and that support needs to come in terms of security, so that we have a better security situation, and at the same time the investments that are needed for that livelihoods, the socio-economic impact, more infrastructure.
In other news, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) has announced 152 new cases of COVID-19, increasing the total number of confirmed cases to 64,336 in the country. Of these 152 new cases, Lagos has 93, the FCT has 21, Oyo 15, Rivers 11, Bauchi 7, Kwara has 2, while Bayelsa, Edo and Plateau states recorded 1 new case each. On total cases per state chart, Lagos leads with 22,053 cases. Next is the FCT with 6,284 cases, followed by Plateau with 3,679 cases, and then Oyo with 3,540 cases. Number of active cases are down 2,843, with 60,333 recovered and discharged, while an unfortunate 1,160 persons have lost their lives. And that concludes the morning news highlights. Good Morning Nigeria on Judicial panel on police brutality will continue immediately after this break with Kingsley and Yusuf. Good morning.
A scorecard like no other. Government has put in place measures and initiatives principally targeted at youths, women, and the most vulnerable groups in our society. These included broad plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. The creation of 75 billion naira National Youth Investment Fund to provide opportunities for the youths, and the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Survivor Fund, through which government is A. Paying 3-month salaries of the staff of 100,000 micro, small and medium enterprises. B. Paying for the registration of 250,000 businesses at the Corporate Affairs Commission. C. Giving a grant of 30,000 naira to 100,000 artisans and guaranteeing market for the product of traders. These are in addition to many other initiatives such as farmer money, trader money, market money, N-Power, N-Tech, and N-Agro. These and more in spite of a recession and a global pandemic.
Do you know that social media is not good or bad, and that it is you who is using it that is either good or bad? Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, verify the information, and reflect before sharing it. Now, are you a good social media user? Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source for a better Nigeria.
This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now it's time for business news, and here is our correspondent, Ronami Egirani.
The Zone A Federal Operations Unit of the Nigerian Customs Service confiscated vehicles and general goods with a duty-paid value of 17.5 billion naira from January to September 2020. This was revealed in a statement that was signed by the Public Relations Officer of Zone A, Theophilus Dunia. He also stated that another 1.61 billion naira was added to the government's revenue from demand notices on cargo that was either underdeclared, falsely declared, or wrongly classified. And on the stock markets yesterday, things continue to look good despite a small drop in the number of stocks that were traded. The markets closed with a volume of 578.7 million compared to Monday's high of 663 million. Total value of stocks traded also dropped slightly to 7.7 billion naira. All-share index climbed 1.25% to 32,647.10 points from 32,243.05 points. Market capitalization also rose 1.17% to close at 17 trillion naira. With business news, I'm Ronami Egirani.
Now, many thanks, Ronami. And up next is the newspaper review.
Newspaper reviewer Baya Tobe is with us as always. Baya, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, President. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Baya. Welcome.
All right. Yeah. So let's begin by taking a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. It's one of our regulars now. Now, above the nameplate, that's from top to bottom, it says, CBN warns banks against diverting agric intervention funds. Border closure, LCCI, that's the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Peterside, that's Atedo Peterside, condemn exemption for Dangote and others. That's page 19. I'm leaving PDP for APC, Umahi tells Secondus and others. Umahi is governor of Ebonyi State. And Lagos plans to stop Tinubu and other former governors' pensions. That's page 2. NIDCOM, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, that is, plans list of Nigerians wrongfully jailed abroad. NEC will decide APC caretaker panel's tenure. That's according to Boni's committee. And this story comes to the double-decker headline, CBN accuses Hash and SARS campaigners of terrorism. With 2 riders, Apex Bank alleges transactions in frozen accounts can cause economic and security harm. Freezing accounts is illegal, and federal government behaving like a terrorist, says Aisha Yesufu. And then the photographs there on the front page have the caption that core members and staff of the NYSC during the opening of the 2020 Batch B Stream 1A of the NYSC camp in Iyanokbaja, Lagos on Tuesday. To be honest with you, Bayo, sometimes I get confused when I hear Batch B, Batch A. This one I say Batch B, Stream 1A. I don't know what those things mean. Yes, I think that's for their generation. They will understand what it means. In the past, once you finish your exams in June and your results were out, you got mobilized sometime in July, and then you went for the orientation. And then you came back and you had 3 weeks, and then you got a job. So, but good luck to them for those Batch B, Stream 1A. All right, and then the 3 other headlines right there, they're almost at the foot of the front page. Zulum hails tracking of Boko Haram's funding in UAE, 6 follow-up. And reps clash over alleged harassment of Humanitarian Affairs Minister. Strange illness kills 17 in Benue community, others hospitalized.
And that's taking cue from what you said about the NYSC. The main picture here on the Daily Trust is talking about that. There are pictures of NYSC members, arriving at camp and getting, observing the, NCDC or COVID-19 protocols as they get settled for the business of NYSC in those days. And that's particularly talking about Osun State here. Now, the main story here is about land border closure. And that's anger as Dangote boy get waiver for export. With the riders is selective waiver killing small businesses, says Peterside. We want fairness, says local exporters. And that is presidential approval, says the customs. And cement sells for 3,100. This story is going to be on page 5. Other stories, especially on page 6, is the 428 agencies can't pay November salary, says federal government. And on page 45, strange disease kills 25 in Benue and Oyo states. On page 4, Sanwo-Olu moves to stop Tinubu and others' pensions. The bottom page of Daily Trust, we have IGP 6 24.8 billion naira to fuel vehicles and motorcycles. You get that story on page 44. On page 8, Mamandora needlessly misunderstood. Buhari said this. And on page 38, APC gets presidential approval for membership registration. That's it on Daily Trust Bio.
Let's start with the good news coming from United Arab Emirates. An Abu Dhabi appeal court has jailed 6 Boko Haram sponsors in United Arab Emirates. 2 of them were jailed for life, and 4 others were jailed for 10 years for providing about 300 million to fund Boko Haram. The 2 that were convicted for life are Siraju Muhammad and Salih Adamu, and the other 4 who were to spend the next 10 years in jail are Ibrahim Al-Hassan, Bashir Yusuf, Abdurrahman Musa Isa. Upon completion of their 10-year jail term, they will be deported from Nigeria. Governor Babagana Zulum is encouraged about the development, and he has urged the federal government to also follow up and fish out more of the sponsors. The governor is lamenting that for the period that Boko Haram has held the nation prostrate for 11 years, they have in the process caused thousands of citizens' death, displacement of millions, and destroy property worth 9 billion naira. Actually, the United Arab Emirates had traced that the persons they were convicted were operating bureau de change, and in the process, they transferred $780,000 to Boko Haram in 17 transfers between 2015 and 2016. One must commend the initiative in the United Arab Emirates. You recall that Ramon was also arrested in United Arab Emirates, popularly known as Hush Puppy. Before they arrested them, they had followed them for a period of 4 months, trailing them day and night using technology. On the day they were to arrest them, they swapped on all the 13 of them at 4:30 a.m. before they woke up. And so I think our Nigerian police need to learn from their kind of strategy. They are not loud. They are quiet. They work quietly and subterraneously, and they use intelligence, and they are getting successes.
And that's the power of technology there, if you can look at very well. Yeah.
The others, I think that we should also give credit to Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust first broke that story some days ago. I think it was last week or so that they broke the story about the conviction of those Nigerians by an Abu Dhabi court, and of course the appeal which they lost. The court, of course, threw out the appeal, and the Daily Trust provided details. I first read that story online, and I think that's very important that this is happening. And Governor Zulum of Borno is saying that, look, they should ramp up the investigation of other sponsors of Boko Haram. And this is something that hasn't happened frequently or even successfully in recent times, because without the oxygen of sponsorship, Boko Haram, of course, will find it difficult to continue to operate. We know that, of course, they will be getting some of the arms supplies from outside of the country and elsewhere. And if international cooperation can be sought in that regard, that will also be helpful.
Yeah, it's a very quick way to suffocate the sources of finances and, of course, bring a quick end to their activities. The other story of interest is the one read about Lagos, where Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has given an indication that he will soon be sending a bill to the Lagos State House of Assembly to put an end to the law that provides for pension welfare benefits, including houses in Lagos and Abuja for former governors of the state. And the governor says the aim is to repeal the law is to ensure that the legal obligation placed on the state, which is reducing the cost of governance, is taken care of. Meanwhile, Lagos State has proposed a budget of 1.155 trillion for 2020. It says that the focus of the budget is specifically youth employment, security, youth engagement, and social works, as well as others. The governor emphasized that the COVID-19 pandemic and the NSAS protest has highlighted the need for youth empowerment, employment, and the budget is specifically focusing on job creation and the potentials like agriculture, construction, technology, and security.
As you would expect, Bayo and Nadabo, the story out of Lagos is less of its budget than of the policy pronouncement of the submission of an executive bill on the abrogation of the payment of pensions to former governors and deputy governors. In greater detail on page 2 of the Punch newspaper, there are subtitles indicating what the reactions have been to that proposal by the Lagos State governor. I read out some of these subtitles. Serap hails Sanwo-Olu's move. Now, Wike, who is governor of Rivers, has not announced such a plan. That's attributed to a Rivers commissioner. Our ex-governors still collecting pensions. This is Edo State. We have no such plan now, but we may copy Lagos, says Gombe. Circumstances determine each state's decision. That's attributed to Bayelsa. Akwa Ibom, not Lagos Annex. Ex-president's pension should be stopped too. That's according to Governor's Aid. And then you have the last subtitle here, will consult stakeholders before taking a decision, says Kano. If you recall, Bayo, it's an issue that has come up on Good Morning Nigeria, and it's always been a heated issue because the benefits by way of pension to former governors and deputy governors, those benefits are huge considering the lean resources of states. And at some point, you saw that lawmakers then began to copy the benefits of those in the executive branch. If you've been a Speaker of a House, you then said, okay, you were entitled to so many advantages because you had been a Speaker. And then the argument then arose, suppose you were a Speaker for just 1 day or for 1 week. Because, of course, your colleagues, you are first among equals, and your colleagues can remove you at any time. Oh, they then say, look, it's when you serve a full tenure. But there's no guarantee that you can serve a full tenure. So this has been on for a while, and Lagos is taking this decisive step. In the case of Lagos, the provisions, indeed, for those who have analyzed it, say the provisions are scandalous. I mean, a former governor who served for 8 years, that's 2 full terms, will be entitled to a house in Lagos.
A house in Abuja.
A house in Abuja, entitled to 3 or 4 cars to be changed every 3 or 4 years, entitled to free medical care for himself and members of his family at home and abroad, entitled to so many aids. And you're just asking yourself, why all of this? And we always cited the example of Lateef Jakonde, who was governor of Lagos State in the Second Republic from 1979 to 1983. Throughout his tenure, Jakonde lived in his personal house at Ilukpeju, and he was using his personal car, which was a Toyota Crown 3.5L. He was using it, and he's still living there, 90-something years old. And everybody continues to say that Jakonde was a hard worker. Others have also been working hard, but why should such a burden be on the state? Having been a former governor. The benefits could be reduced, but certainly not what we have seen in recent years.
In comparative terms, I think that's why it's generating controversy. Take, for instance, a public officer who serves for 35 years before he is retired. Under the new contributory pension scheme, none of them earn as a pension half of what they were earning while they were in office. And these are people who have put in 35 years of service. Then you have political office holders who are already provided for by law that they get 300% of their entitlement as at the end of their tenure. That is the condition that is provided. But the state assemblies went ahead and provided this law. Incidentally, Kwara State was one of the first states that have repealed that law.
And most worrisome even is the issue of multiple pensions. That's only for the governors and the executive.
Yes.
There are so many pensions. There are ex-retired generals. There are, retired generals per se. There are some other people that have left other services still collecting these pensions and still either at the National Assembly or House of Assembly and still wanting all this.
It is legal to draw true emoluments on the federation account or state government's account. So when you are a former governor, you are drawing pension, then you are currently a senator, and then you're also drawing emolument as a senator. I don't know.
Yeah, those are the points. And Bayo, you were just talking about the quantum of pensions that are usually earned by officers who have said. Why? I won't recall whether you and I were on set. We're discussing the issues of police, how to restore their confidence and morale in the light of the havoc that they suffered in the hands of the miscreants and hoodlums who hijacked the NSAS protests. And the former commissioner of police and the retired IG of police, they were too ashamed to indicate how much they take home as pension on a monthly basis. Yes. So I think this is an issue. You can say that, oh, how many former governors are there? How many former deputy governors are there? But there is also signaling in some of these things. If you combine the quantum, you ask yourself, what good can this quantum do in the lives of, say, 10 persons, in the lives of, say, 100 persons?
And there are thousands of such, really,
absolutely,
for sure. It goes for that.
Well, let's look at the running story. And when I'm talking about running story, we're talking about the latest from the election from the United States. The Secretary of State for the United States, George Pompeo, has made some critical statements that has thrown some confusion into the ongoing political stalemate. He says that the elections, there will be a recount of the election votes. And he says specifically that he, as a Secretary of State, is in contact with his various colleagues around the world, and they are asking questions, and they are providing them answers that there is a process, voting will be reconducted, there will be recount until the proper thing is done. And he has sent another signal that there is no cause for alarm because in 2000, the American people had to wait for about 37 days before they knew the outcome of the election. And when he was asked whether there will be any inauguration, he said yes, there will be inauguration for the second term of President Donald Trump.
Well, that's a partisan statement. That's clearly a partisan statement coming from Mike Pompeo, who is the U.S. Secretary of State.
Yes.
Don't forget that various states in the U.S. also have their secretaries of state. Those are the ones who are in charge of the conduct of elections in the states. And the procedure for an automatic recount or a court-ordered recount, those procedures are quite clear. Sometimes when references are made to Florida, yes, there was a delay in getting to know who the ultimate victor in the election was. The matter also then went to the Supreme Court, and by a split decision of 5-4, George W. Bush was named the winner. But the circumstances are not the same.
Yeah, not the same.
I had the privilege of visiting that county where you had a challenge with the hanging charge and the reforms that they had to make to change that, because it was how were you going to count the ballots? So be sure, it's like what we have in Nigeria sometimes when you say invalid votes. When you place a thumbprint, which party is it for? So those hanging charts were either on a line or you were not quite sure who to count for, and so on and so forth. In the end, the difference came to 537 votes. 537, not forgetting the role also played by Ralph Nader, who was the third candidate in that presidential election. But this one is different, and we're hoping and seeing how all of this will play out.
Well,
Madabo.
One thing is sure.
I think the issue is the American system. You can't even say anything about that, because normally what happens with them is they seem this time around not to go by the books. Because that's what's been there. Well, everybody knows.
There are still about 4 states whose votes have not been declared. If it is declared as at this morning, the margin between Donald Trump unpopular was about 75 million to 71 million. On the basis of electoral vote, it's about 279 to 214. And there are still more states to be declared. Let's see, eventually, the events will sort themselves out. Like Kingsley pointed out, the courts in each state have their own court, and in fact, some of them have their own Supreme Court. So those ones will decide. It is only when it comes to the federal issues that it will eventually end up at the Supreme Court.
Oh, well, many thanks, Bayo. Thank you so much for reviewing these papers this morning. Hope you'll be here tomorrow again. We'll now take a break. We'll be back with more on Good Morning Nigeria.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Get more out of life with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now. Data is life.
Airtel, the smartphone network. These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it. don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Right, glad you're still with us on Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. Though some states' judicial panel of inquiry into police brutality have been sitting for about 2 weeks now, some 10 states or so are yet to announce their panels and to set the tone for our discussion on judicial panel on police brutality this Wednesday morning. Here is a background put together by Abdusalam Jubril.
In October this year, 2020, a series of protests gained momentum across the country. The hashtag #EndSARS protest, which started against police brutality, also called for the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS, as well as reforms in the Nigerian police force. In reaction to the protest, President Muhammadu Buhari instructed the Inspector General of Police to address the concerns of the protesting youths, and this brought about the immediate disbandment of SARS. Meeting the 5-point demands of the protesters, the government made other concessions, including the release of detained NSAS protesters, psychological evaluation of disbanded SARS officers, and general police reforms, among others. One of the concessions agreed to by the government was the setting up of judicial panels of inquiry by state governments into cases of alleged violation of human rights by SARS and other units of the police. So far, 26 states have set up their judicial panels. These include Katsina, Kogi, Kwara, Ekiti, Osun, Ogun, Ondo, Lagos, Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, Anambra, Bauchi, Gombe, Plateau, Adamawa, Taraba, Nasarawa, Enugu, Ebonyi, Benue, Cross River, Abia, Imo, Akwa Ibom, and River State. Some experts insist the judicial panels of inquiry across states will help ensure justice is done on behalf of the peaceful protesters and law enforcement agents who sadly lost their lives. They also maintain that state-based judicial panels of inquiry are preferable over a central panel of inquiry, given the ability to address petitions from a wider public and large data gathering capability. With the constitution of these panels of inquiry, how effective will they be towards providing justice to victims? Under the law, how legally binding are the panels towards prosecutions of erring police officers? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be deliberating on these issues shortly.
All right, many thanks there for that background. Now to the list of states that you read out as having set up their judicial panels of inquiry. We'll also have to add the panel set up under the auspices of the National Human Rights Commission here in the Federal Capital Territory. Well, we have guests with us who will be discussing all of these details subsequently. And so let's welcome one more time to our studios, Romy Mom, an Honorable Commissioner in charge of human rights at the Police Service Commission. Romy, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Also here with us is Abdul Rahman Yakubu, who is Director, Civil and Political Rights Department of the National Human Rights Commission. Abdul Rahman, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigerians. Thank you.
And also, as usual, we have a regular security expert, Kabiru Adamu, doctor, that is. You're welcome once again. It's good to have you again.
The pleasure is mine. Good morning.
Thank you so very much. We're also expecting Frank Tete, a human rights lawyer and executive director, Citizens Advocacy for Social and Economic Rights. He will be joining us in the course of this, discussion.
All right, gentlemen, once again, delight to have you. I mean, quite clearly, the focus of the judicial panels of inquiry is a matter that has to do with human rights. But let's just try and assist our viewers, at least some, if not most of them, in understanding the core essence of the judicial panels of inquiry, which we now have across several states in the Federation, as well as in the National Human Rights auspices. Let's begin with Romy Mom, who is, of course, of the Police Service Commission.
Yeah, thank you. I think the essence or the need for the judicial panels of inquiry across the state is basically to see that the needs and the reasons why we had the protest that just ended meets the aching points as much as possible of why those protests were there to begin with. And so first and foremost is to, if you look at all the TORs of the state's panels that have been set up, three things comes through all of them. One is to identify those officers who can be said to have been culprits in the brutality that went on and all of that, infringement of human rights. And secondly is also to identify those who suffered this, and most importantly, reparations, compensations, and all of that. And basically, if we meet these three objectives across the states to a very large extent, there is some sort of closure with regard to what citizens suffer vis-a-vis SARS. But of course, some states have gone beyond SARS. If you look at some other state TORs, they are talking about police brutality in general. They are not restricting it to SARS as some states have done it. Some states are also restricting it to persons who lost their lives, so to speak. If you look at the TORs and you try to pick them, you try to unpack them in the details. So there's slight variations from state to state. While some are restricting it to SARS, others are looking at it, police brutality in general. Personally, for me, I think the issue of the time limit they are given is something that we need to look at carefully. I understand government's good intention of saying, look, let's get this thing quickly out there, let's get it done and all of that, so that some sort of trust can begin to build in the process between citizens and government. But for me, the time that has been given for people to come forward with complaints seems to be a bit tight. Maybe government and the states, as the case might be, might want to expand that a bit so that much more persons can come forward. You know that when these panels were set up, there has been some sort of hesitancy. Do we even engage? How do we know government is sincere, given what people have experienced in the past? So beautiful for me. I think it's the essence is wonderful. The objective is good, and we pray that we eventually come to that level where aspirations of citizens and governments come to fruition.
Dr. Kabir Adamu, let's take a cue from what he said. He's talking about time here. Do you agree with him in that the time, is too tight, really?
I think time is relative in the sense that what do you use the time for? So before time, I think what is even more critical is advocacy. Let Nigerians be aware of the existence of this panel, which is why what we're doing here, I think, is very instrumental. I think NTA has done an amazing job by providing this platform. Nigerians who view this would be aware of the existence of these panels in 27 states. I know several other platforms, especially social media, are also doing a very good job in terms of cataloging the existence of this panel. Some stations would even give you live proceedings of some of these panels. And as far as I'm aware, I think about 16 of them have started sitting. And there is a quite substantial response by the public. But I think one of the challenges that I have monitored is the ability of the ordinary Nigerian who perhaps does not have the means to present this type of petitions. The mode for the presentation is not easily accessible to the average and ordinary Nigerian. So those are areas that I think can be looked into. But beyond that, I think the federal government needs to be commended. And I would like to take a cue by the visiting on the Secretary General of the UN, on the Secretary General of the UN, Deputy Secretary General of the UN, when she mentioned that Nigeria is one of the few countries in the world that has responded speedily to the requirements of protesters. One of their requirements is to set up an independent body to investigate brutality and allegations against the police. And the federal government, through a National Executive Council meeting, immediately directed states to set up these panels. And we've seen 26 states and the federal capital responding by setting up this panel. So quite commendable.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Kabir. Let's bring in Abdulrahman Yakubu. Rami has been talking about the TOR of the various panels. Of course, that refers to the terms of reference. For that, under the auspices of the National Human Rights Commission, what's unique and what are the goals?
Thank you very much. The National Human Rights Commission, as we know, is the government agency that has the responsibility to monitor, promote, and protect human rights. And so in accordance with that, the National Human Rights Commission has set up its own special independent investigative panel to investigate allegations of human rights violations by the defunct SARS, but not only the defunct SARS, as well as all other units of police in the country. And one of the uniqueness of the Human Rights Commission panel is that it has the mandate to receive complaints across the country, even though state governments have set up their own judicial commissions of inquiry. But some Nigerians still believe that they will get quick and maybe what they feel a prompt reprieve with respect to complaints. So that panel has been receiving complaints from across the country, even though sometimes the Secretariat will advise them that they should channel their complaints to the state judicial commissions of inquiry, but they will say that they prefer the special investigative panel of the National Human Rights Commission, and they have the option to either send their petition to the state or to send to the National Human Rights Commission. So the National Human Rights Commission has a mandate to investigate these complaints across the country, even though majority of the complaints so far received by the Human Rights Commission panel come from the North Central states, including the Federal Capital Territory.
So, Honorable, this is a very crucial point, and I think that I would like Abdulrahman to speak further to it.
What is it?
There's the issue of forum shopping. That's in law, which I believe you're familiar with. You said that some potential petitioners say that they will prefer the National Human Rights Commission. Now, assuming I'm based in Bayelsa now, and the alleged offense I committed was also in Bayelsa, and the complainant decides to come to Abuja to your Human Rights Commission panel, who's going to bear the cost of my appearance at your commission? Now, alternatively, if the complainant or the petitioner were to file the petition in Bayelsa, then it will be a convenient forum for both the petitioner and the respondent. So why are you then taking on this omnibus task of getting and receiving petitions from all parts of the country, that when you get to the nitty-gritty of your work and you are having to summon respondents, have you thought about what the likely cost might be and challenges, and therefore who might bear the costs and the efficiency of the panel in that respect?
Thank you for that. The thing is that we have states that have set up judicial commissions of inquiry, and petitioners, majority of them have been filing petitions in their respective states. But if a complainant feels that he or she wants to send his or her petition to the National Human Rights Commission, it will be inappropriate to close the door on that person and say because the state where the incidents happened have set up this judicial go there. But of course, the petitioners, they are aware that they have the responsibility to bear the cost of appearing before the commission. However, the commission is working on the possibility of assisting some indigent complainants who may not be able maybe to shoulder the cost of transportation to Abuja. Also, the panel has a team of legal counsel, both from the commission and from outside the commission, that will assist petitioners who may not be able to articulate the complaints that they are bringing before the commission. Then concerning respondents, most of the respondents, I can say 98% are police personnel, and the police institution has the responsibility of ensuring that these respondents appear before the panel. So the issue of logistics in terms of transport and some other things will not arise for whoever feels that he wants to bring his or her petition before the National Human Rights Commission. Also, the Commission will also look at the number of complaints. And where we have a significant number of complaints in the geopolitical zones, the panel of the Commission is prepared to visit these geopolitical zones to also hear the complaints. The panel may take 2 or 3, let's say, in the South-South. We can have sitting in Port Harcourt that will take care of Cross River State, and Bayelsa. So all those things are part of how the panel wants to go about is the business of investigating these complaints.
But still, Abdurrahman, talking about this commission and the inquiry here in this your commission, when we look at it, don't you think as if there's going to be duplication? The question may be asked that, why wouldn't you have waited for these states panels and the other panels to finish their investigations before you get your own running?
Thank you. I don't think there is issue of duplication, because of the sense that the commission is not going to listen to complaints that are being listened to by this panel. One is that the commission has link with all the states that have set up their panel so far, and a staff of the National Human Rights Commission is a representative of all these panels. So the state coordinator of the National Human Rights Commission represents the commission in all the panels that have been set up by states. And there is a synergy and a working relationship between the National Human Rights Commission and all the panels set up in the state. So the issue of duplication does not arise at all. It's just the issue of giving Nigerians better and more opportunities, to be able to express themselves, and also giving respondents the opportunity to be also to defend whatever allegations Nigerians have leveled against them.
Okay, thanks, Abdurrahman. Rami, let's have you again. What is the attitude of the Police Service Commission to the commissions of inquiry?
Oh, well, as you may very well know, the Police Service Commission represents zones and in various interest groups, citizens, ranging from women groups, organized private sector, the NGOs, the police themselves, judiciary, and the media. And so we are gradually, we are looking closely at how citizens are responding to these issues, given that, again, the issue of police discipline lies with the Police Service Commission. Some things have come out very in the early stages, which is why I was talking about time. For instance, the issue of security. How are complainants, how are persons who have grievances, how do they feel secured going before this commission? Do they have concerns about their safety? And I think the question Abdurrahman is talking about them coming more to Abuja. Can that be probably one of the reasons? Because, for example, in Imo State, you just have 2 petitions that have been filed all this while. I mean, just 2. And the tribunal, the panel itself is wondering, should it sit at all? You have cases where persons are complaining about the cost of even filing these petitions in terms of the rateism. Some you can, for example, file them through emails. You have to go there, sometimes deposit 15 copies. Like one of River State, you deposit 15 copies of them, spiral bind. You have to deposit it. You have to also give a disc. What do you call Yeah. So all these things makes it very difficult for citizens to approach, and we are hoping that if the issue is discipline of police officers, the commission will want to see the whole thing come through very clearly in terms of the fact that citizens are given the space, free access in every sense of the word to approach the panels, put forward their concerns in a manner that at the end of the day, officers who have been identified will be, sanctioned in appropriate terms by the Police Service Commission. So for us, what we are looking at closely is the access for citizens, groups across the entire geopolitical zones to approach this commission in a manner that should not be hindered in any way. Let's take care of their security. Let's make this as accessible as possible. Let's make it in a manner that people are confident and all of that. Remember, trust is really, really very important. And at the end of it all, let even the officers who have been accused, let it be that it's not witch hunt. Let it be that they are truly, truly, truly culpable, as the case might be. Because the tragedy will be again in maybe going against an officer who is, not culpable, but we want to do it because there's tension, persons want to see someone being held accountable and all of that. And that's why we want to see all these things not rushed. Let us take it, in a manner that at the end of it all, justice will be served, both ends.
All right. Thank you, Romy. We earlier indicated that we'll be joined by another guest. Is with us now. Frank Tete has been on Good Morning Nigeria a couple of times. He's a human rights lawyer and also executive director of the Citizens Advocacy for Social and Economic Rights. Frank, delight to have you with us on the program. And so let's have your first salvo with regard to the essence, in your view, and potential value of the various judicial panels of inquiry that have been set up to investigate allegations of brutality by members of the now disbanded SARS, as well as bring justice to victims of such police brutality.
All right, thank you very much. You see, we can never have too many panels. The human rights community greets the setting up of these panels, and particularly by the National Human Rights Commission, with so much excitement, and I consider this as a serious and welcome development. It is not only about citizens' access. It's about the facts. It's about, changing the narrative that we live in a climate of impunity. People must know that one way or the other, whatever they do that is a form of infraction against the law as law enforcement officers will come out. It doesn't matter how difficult it is for victims, even the ones that have died. They will eventually get justice one way or the other. So what we have seen in the setting up of this panel is a resonance of heightened hope. It's not as if the National Human Rights Commission has not been doing this, listening to all of those who have been able to approach it. But when you give it this kind of national outlook and give it this kind of free access and making it devoid of unusual difficulties and technicalities that are associated with matters that are criminal in nature, that are form of infractions against the law, it's a welcome development. I've been part of the panel here in Abuja as an external counsel, and you cannot deny those facts that are being presented in the panel. No matter how much you want to raise issues with regards to multiplicity or the propriety of setting up this panel in terms of going into the nitty-gritty of the legality, you cannot take away the fact that citizens now have free access to express grievances against members of the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad. Don't also forget that some members of the police force particularly have before now thought that they are untouchables and that nothing can happen. That is in quote with regards to whatever they have done. Even the big names who have earned a very positive reputation. But we are beginning to see that with the setting up of these panels, truth is coming out, and there is a very strong indication that the president will act. I'm happy that the president and the Police Service Commission is taking a positive stance, but this is about giving a copious report to the president for him to act, and we expect that something very definite will come out from these panels.
Still hanging on you, Frank Tete. Now, you've been part of this panel, as you said, and earlier on, Dr. Kabir Adam raised the issue of enlightenment and, sensitization and advocacy about the public. Can you please tell us how responsive the public has been to these inquiries and the very panel?
You know, the various state panels may not enjoy the kind of publicity that has greeted the panel sitting in Abuja that has been set up by the National Human Rights Commission. Just by mere appearing there as a counsel and with flashes of my picture in the various media that reported it, my inbox was full of complaints. And then in my personal Facebook handle we're filled with inquiries as to, do you really mean that the panel is sitting? Is it possible we can send in petitions? And the most exciting part of it is that when the panel makes an announcement that there is no longer a time bar with regards to the limitations in terms of presenting complaints to the panel. So, you see, the response to it has been overwhelming. You know, I must tell you this, that the psyche in the citizenry is that, well, nothing will happen, so what's the point complaining in the first place? But now when they see that effort is being made by the National Human Rights Commission to set up a panel that is all-encompassing in terms of spreading its membership across the various strata in the society. You have a very young man there. You have women and academics and lawyers. So people have a sense that there is going to be something positive, and then they are responding. In my inbox, my email, for example, I've received various petitions, and I directed them, no, send it to the panel, just by mere appearing. So it is greeted with serious excitement. There have been allegations before now, many years of allegations against specific police formations across the country, specifically in Anambra State and some other places, with documented facts by the Network on Police Reforms. Nothing has been done. These victims have not been heard, but they now have opportunity to be heard. It's something that is unusual and positively unusual, and it's going to be helpful.
Okay,
I just want
just a minute.
That's a point that Frank made earlier, and we have to tie that up with what Romy said in his last submission. Frank, you've given us the perspective of the petitioners who have so far appeared or are appearing before the commission. So it's their side of the story that we are hearing. Romy says that it is also important for the justice of the various petitions that they should not also turn out to be either a perception or a reality, scapegoating of otherwise diligent police officers.
Don't forget that we are talking about hard facts here and truth. We are also referring to a panel that has unbridled access that has been given to members of the public and then members of the police force. We have a member of the Police Service Commission in that panel. Now, the rules of natural justice are fully complied to. That is, the other party that has been accused has opportunity to respond. In fact, I see the panel going overboard in ensuring that those who have been mentioned, policemen who have been mentioned to have committed offenses, allegedly committed offenses and infractions against law enforcement procedures. The chairman of the panel has said, everything that has been said in the preceding hearing will be typed out and sent to the police, the policeman affected, and then the Inspector General of Police, and then the Police Service Commission. So giving them opportunity to be heard. The good thing about it is that we're not talking about strict adherence to the rules of evidence or criminal procedure, but we're talking about something that is in the semblance of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, whereby there is the victims are given opportunity to speak, and those who have been mentioned, who have been accused, will also have absolute unbridled access and without restriction whatsoever to come and respond. And the good thing about it is that we have a panel that has the records of these facts that will make recommendations. We are talking about a reconciliatory approach to justice in this matter, something that is unusual. It has been difficult for these victims to approach the courts or to even approach the police itself that they are accusing. But it's a different thing entirely under this auspices of the National Human Rights Commission, where these citizens come. let us remove this presumption that the policeman who has been accused is presumed to be guilty. No, the policeman is also a Nigerian citizen. There is a responsibility on the part of the members of the panel to protect his rights. So they can expect objectivity in the administration of justice and in taking decisions with regards to the testimonies that have been put before the panel.
Many thanks, Frank, there. I want us to tie this frank assumption to what you said, Dr. Kabir Adamu. He's talking about, although he said the response to the panel here in Abuja may not be the same in the other states of the Federation, but earlier on you posited that there is need for greater advocacy for people to understand that there is need for them to come out and, get across to the panel. You've been monitoring this, I believe, although you've not been at the center of it like Frank is. What informed that decision of yours, or what they're thinking, that you think that there's going to be greater one, looking at what he is saying, that people are, responding seriously?
Two major things. The target population, which in this case are youths, the majority of the petitioners, quote unquote, or at least the victims, were youths, even though some of them unfortunately have lost their lives. So it's their family members that are now petitioning. Now, if we agree that the NSAS movement actually started in the cyberspace, then I believe that the advocacy should be more in the cyberspace, because that's the target population. And that is when these youths would be able to come out and respond. So that's number one. Two, and it was touched by the other discussants, the medium for submitting the petition. And one of the things I have picked up is the, encouragement, as it were, or request for these panels, including the one in Abuja, to consider the possibility of allowing the submission of, petitions, perhaps through electronic means. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know what the consequences would be, but this is what I'm hearing from people who are looking into this, and that would also expand the, the number of petitions. If at the end of the day, what we want is justice, and if at the end of the day, we want the largest number of victims, quote unquote, to be able to submit their petitions, then I think that is one area to look at. So if we do these two, use the cyberspace for advocacy, and I think considerably that is being done, but perhaps especially from the side of the panels themselves, I do not know what administrative support they have, perhaps from the National Human Rights Commission, or even at the level of state government. Some of the, I see in Lagos, perhaps there is some support by the state government. So how are we going to deploy this administrative support to use this cyberspace for advocacy, so that the target population, the youths, are able to now take, because at the end of the day, let's remember that the essence of the establishment of this panel is to meet the demands by the NSAS, that particular demand. And I think these two things would go a long way towards helping that essence.
Abu Rahman, in the immediate aftermath of the recommendation for states to set up the judicial panels of inquiry, the Nigerian Bar Association offered to assist petitioners who might not be in the position to draft their petition to the Human Rights Commission. And Frank Tete has said now that his inbox has been bursting at the seams and has been directing the petitioners to forward their petitions to the Human Rights Commission panel. What has been the experience with the panel? Have you found NBA members who are assisting petitioners, or you find petitioners who are getting discouraged because they are unable to reduce their grievances into a readable and presentable format, since we're not really talking about reforms now, how you draft a writ and so on and so forth?
Thank you very much. Let me touch on some few things before I come to that. With respect to the issue of fair trial, we know that a fair hearing is a constitutional right, and it's also one of what we call non-derogable human rights. Under no circumstance can fair trial be restricted. Therefore, any respondent must and has the opportunity to appear before these panels and defend himself or herself. So now what the commission panel has done is to have issued hearing notices to all the police formations, including the police officers that have been alleged to have violated human rights. And the panel in Abuja is just sitting. And in subsequent sittings, the police personnel will have the opportunity to listen to the petitioners and to also respond. Then on the issue of time, even though when the Abuja panel issued call for memoranda, it gives 2 weeks within which petitioners are to submit their petitions. But as we are talking now, so the panel is still receiving petitions, and it will continue to receive petitions up till the time that it's going to conclude its sittings. Then for states, I think that there's need to appeal to state panels to make appearance before them to be very, very easy, to enable petitioners to be able to bring out their petitions. As for the Abuja panel, the rules are very, very liberal. And there is a team of legal experts that will further reduce those complaints into a manner in which it will be easily be well articulated. And as I said, they are also counsel to also assist petitioners that may not be in a position to have his or her own personal legal representation. Now, coming to the question you asked, now the Abuja panel has not restricted the manner in which complaints should come. In fact, I can say about 75% of complaints before the panel come to the email, to the internet. So people can bring in complaints in hard copies. They can bring it to the internet, and there is no any rule to say you must bring 15 or you must bring 10. There is no rule. Even if you bring one, so the panel in Abuja is going to make copies to ensure that this complaint gets to all the members of the panel. So the manner in which these petitions are being brought are very, very liberal, and whoever has any complaint has the opportunity to bring his or her complaint before the panel in Abuja. Now, the Commission has also signed a memorandum of partnership with the National MBA, and that partnership means that the MBA is sending lawyers that will provide pro bono services to all petitioners before the National Human Rights Commission panel. And not only in Abuja, the MBA is also going to make available lawyers to also assist petitioners in all the states that have set up a Judicial Commission of Inquiry. So citizens that do not have the wherewithal to get their own personal representation, they have the counsel of the panel. They also have counsel to represent them from the Nigerian Bar Association.
So virtually you're saying that there wouldn't be any problem with having a lawyer to stand for you from citizens?
Not at all. There's no problem with that at all.
Oh, that's great. Romy, can we talk about one other issue, looking at the enthusiasm with which the Nigerian public is, greeting these very panels? When you look at it very well, a lot of such panels have come and gone, and then there are powers, accruing to them and what they could do and what they could not do. Can you just shed more light for us and for Nigerians on the powers of this panel and what its limitations are, which could maybe go a long way in allaying some people's fear that even if they go, it's going to be like the other ones that have come and gone?
Yeah, I do verily think that this panel is very, very peculiar and different. And I'm also a bit concerned that we're looking at the Abuja panel as what obtains in the states. Far from it. We need to look at what is the issue. There are issues in the states that is not the same as Abuja. I spoke here about the Rivers State panel, for example, that says you must submit 15 copies of spiral binded report along with a disc. That is not Abuja. You are looking at other panels where the issue of security It's very important for persons who are going to say, a police officer did this to me, the dreaded NSAS that as it was, and you're coming forth and all of that, and no one is talking to you about your security. That is making people pull back. We must address these little issues. Abuja is not it's not the standard for Nigeria. Abuja it's a bit high above the state. And so when Abuja is talking about emails, there are lawyers there to help you, there is this and that, we should ask ourselves, is it like that in the States? From what I've seen in the States, it's a bit not like that yet, and we need to, learn to support the states to be at that level where Abuja is. So that is critical for the citizen. And so the enthusiasm we have in Abuja may not be, and it's not obtains what is in the States. Having said that, these panels, for me, it gives a golden opportunity to begin to build trust between citizens and government. That is one of the takeaways that we might get if we get these panels correct. As Tete said, this is the time that citizens are coming forward to speak about what they felt. This in itself is some kind of psychological and psychosocial support in the sense that you're even able to tell your story for the world to learn. You are excelling and all of that. And if beyond the story, we are able to also get reliefs, remedies for persons who have suffered, I tell you, the confidence, the trust in government, such panels will begin to build again. Because over the years, one thing is certain. These panels go around the country, they take evidence, they do all of that, and then we have reports that are there on the shelf for years without nothing being done about it. And we just saw 2 years ago, this is not the first time that we're looking at what SARS did. It was done 2 years ago, but what was the result? The recommendations were kept till the protest happened that this is coming forth again. But we still need to look at the positives. The positives is that this appears to be moving and it appears to be doing well. And the clincher for this whole thing is, at the end of the day, let people have remedies. And if they do, then the kind of trust which led to NSAS, the protests where even government acceded to the 5 requests, people refuse to leave the streets. Because they said, look, we've had this story before. But if we do get it right, I believe that, for me, trust in government and all of that is where we'll be heading to, which is good for Nigeria.
Thanks, Romy. Frank Chetia, let's return to you. One of the points that Romy has raised has to do with, in his view, that in some jurisdictions where you have had these judicial panels set up, there might be intimidation of either petitioners or witnesses. And of course, in our criminal justice system, we don't have an effective witness protection program. And you do know that even in regular courts where there are criminal trials, sometimes some witnesses get intimidated, or alternatively, they get into the dock, witness dock, and then they just forget. You ask him a question, they say, I don't remember. You ask another question, I don't remember. Ask another question, I don't remember. And they say, okay, stand down, and that's the end of the case. But how do we proceed in this particular instance? Because there are some locations where we have witnessed reports, there have been reports of real brutality. How do you get such persons to be confident enough to step forward and not be afraid that once they leave the venue of the proceedings of the judicial panel, somebody will not put them to sleep?
No. That is not the kind of justice that we are envisaging in our country. Now, for those victims who report police brutality and extrajudicial killings in like Okuzu SARS in Anambra State, what else do you think that can be done to them again? People who have been to cells where they are told that they will never come out. I'm referring to the Welcome to Hell particular cell in Okuzu SARS in Anambra State. They've seen it all. But, I must first address a very important matter which Romney has said it all. But let's look at it this way. we have branches of the Nigerian Bar Association in very many towns across this country. We're not talking about, they're not only in states or state capitals, they're in the local government area, councils and all that. So we have lawyers virtually in all these places. If the NBA comes out to say that it is pledging pro bono support to victims or those who want to make complaint, it should be assumed that it will do so and remove all sorts of difficulty. Now, states have been empowered by various laws, including tribunal and inquiries law and act. You know, so it is, the setting up of this panel have been localized so that states setting up panels for their own people. It's expected that they wouldn't make it difficult for them. Why should Abuja be less, difficult than any other state? It shouldn't be. We will expect that state panels should even be, less cumbersome in terms of procedure. But with regards to
well, it seems to have a little problem there with the network. We'll get back to him when other things are said. Dr. Kabir Adam, let's look at other issues now. In the course of these proceedings, as investigations continue and the rest of them, a case came up in Lagos when the panel had to suspend its sitting due to some reasons. And one of the reasons is that some accounts of the, NSAS sponsors or members of the panel have been were freezed or getting frozen. So what's your response to that? How would you respond to that before we get back to Tete?
In all of our discussions, we have been talking about justice and then building confidence. And I think this particular matter affected the confidence of at least two members of the Lagos panel who were representative of the NSAS, the youths. And they felt, as it were, intimidated, and so recused themselves from the panel. And because the quorum, the panel could not meet the quorum, they decided not to sit. So I think that is one area that government needs to also look at critically. If a forum has been provided for meeting the demands of the NSAS protesters, and then this type of action is ongoing. As a security risk management expert, I see the importance of investigation. It's one of the tools of, security work. You have to investigate. But then, how do you balance that investigation with the feelings of and perception of natural justice and fairness? If a member of a panel that you have recognized is feeling intimidated, then I think it brings to question the issues that we have raised around protection for the petitioners. And I think so it's absolutely important that the whole of government, I do not think, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, that it was an intentional move by government. I do not think so. Naturally, an investigation is ongoing, and certain persons' names have come up as possibly involved in perhaps supporting or inciting the type of violence that we saw. Now, the investigation that went on included a demand by one arm of government for the freezing of the accounts of this suspects, quote and unquote. Now, did that arm of government consider the consequences of that action that would lead to what happened in Lagos? Maybe not. So I think the whole of government, and this brings us to the question of coordination, where the whole of government needs to perhaps sit down sometimes and consider the consequences. In certain climes in the world, what they do is they sit down in rooms and then brainstorm. You bring your idea, I bring mine, we brainstorm, we do scenario A, B, C, D, up to E of the consequences of certain action. And that is where intelligence comes in. How, if you do action A, what are the likely ripple effects of this action? So everybody comes with his idea. DSS would come with theirs, customs, name them, would all come with theirs, and then you now reach a conclusion. So I think perhaps this is the time for us to bring back that aspect of coordination in our national security architecture, where we now discuss consequences of some of this action. We have a golden opportunity to come out of this, cleaner and even better, so that we become a model for other parts of the world, just like the UN has mentioned to us, has given us that. So this is, I think we need to look critically at that point, consider the consequence of some certain actions, and then more importantly, and to emphasize the point made by Romney and NTA, protection for especially petitioners and the panel members themselves, irrespective of where they come from. Some of them are representatives of youth. Most of them actually, the chairpersons are retired, judicial officers. So protection is absolutely important for all of them.
Dr. Kabir, thanks. We've re-established the link to our studios where Frank Tete is with us. Frank, I'm sure you heard what Dr. Kabiru said in response to the issue of intimidation of petitioners or witnesses and the reported freezing of the accounts of some members of the NSAS protesters who were also sitting on the panels in Lagos. Loop your answers around all of these issues and the point that Romeo was talking about earlier, that petitioners or witnesses should feel free, safe, and secure to either appear before the panels or indeed to participate in the proceedings.
Interestingly, you need to appreciate the freedom that citizens have, not only with regards to access, but in participating in the actual proceedings of the panel. The last hearing in the High Court, High Court 19 in Abuja, when the particular lady was giving her testimony, more than half of the entire hall was actually moved to tears. People were crying, were shedding tears because of the measure of empathy that was associated with the story being given by the young lady. Now, it tells, and then don't also forget that you have an array of television media houses putting their cameras live, broadcasting live from the panel. Now, that alone has some measure of security attached to it. It means that, there becomes a burden on the law enforcement agents, particularly the one that has been accused, to ensure that nothing happens to that person. Because whatever happens to that person, the presumption will be that it is a backlash of having participated in the panel. And then, so that shows you the level of, transparency with which the panel is being carried on. It also means that those persons who have been accused are watching. Now, let's get something very clear. I don't like it when it seems as if it is because of the NSAS movement. That's why the National Human Rights Commission is doing this. I can testify to you as a human rights practitioner that there has always been unbridled, unrestricted access to the National Human Rights Commission, and there has not been one reported case or complaint that has been made to the National Human Rights Commission, to the best of my knowledge, in the last 15 years of practice as a human rights lawyer, that has been turned back or turned down. So it's not necessarily because of that. And then the National Human Rights Commission will do its part. Those other persons who have their role to play should also do it. For example, the National Human Rights Commission for a long time has conducted reports and conducted investigation studies and made reports to the appropriate agency and authorities of government, including the president. There is no, and that's what the law demands. Now, let us look at the issue of protection of witnesses and then this issue of intimidation. This is what I would have expected. You see, in our country, warning is also a form of punishment. Let us reduce and remove this perception that some people with this wrong perception that citizens have, that government is against them. And government must do everything possible not to continue this impression that the government operates against its own citizens. No, the government exists to protect the people, to cater to their welfare and keep them safe and secure. So this idea of, I wouldn't have expected that, the government, you need to appreciate the power of government. Government is so powerful, it has all the pieces of information it can get with regards to any individual. So why would the government hastily move against an individual where it could issue warning? There is nothing wrong if the government presents facts and issues warning to these young people, whether they are misguided. We know you. We know how much you collected from this person. We know how much you did this and did this to scuttle the system. We will come for you. However, we are dealing with first things first, but not creating the impression we are still, fanning the embers of the NSAS, the protest. We have not yet recovered. Why do you not create the impression that you are moving against? It's not necessary. At this time, what we need to do is to face the most important things. We need police reforms, as the president has said. We're working on that. We need to create systems, just like National Human Rights Commission has done, in terms of creating this platform where citizens can express themselves, and then we move in a coordinated manner. But this idea of freezing accounts is counterproductive. It is putting the cart before the horse. We will get there. We will get there, but government should be able to let people know that they know what they are doing and that they will come for them at the appropriate time, not with the intention of punishing, because these are young people who have, some of them are misguided. Government can say, look, and make publication and say, these and these, such and sort of things happened, and we are letting you know that you don't have to be misguided, but we'll see to it that this kind of thing will not happen again. The right to protest is a fundamental in our country. There is no way you can carry on a protest without some form of receiving donations or the other. But the point is that to what extent, to what goal? Is it to subvert the Nigerian system? Is it to threaten the president? Is it to cause disorder? If that is the purpose, then the law will have its course. But if it is to put people together, coordinate it, ensure security, ensure welfare, so that they can ventilate their grievances to government, there is nothing wrong with that. That shouldn't come at this time.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Really, it's all about, restoring confidence in the police and the government, of course, and of course talking about repairing injured minds and injured wounds and injured sensibilities and intentions. Also talk about the panel, which is really doing all this towards having Nigeria becoming a better place for the police and for the people that are being policed. We shall now take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on Good Morning Nigeria and talking about the panels of inquiry. Stay with us.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
My name is Nando Jamda
Muhammad
Stevita
Hussein Musa Roduna Joel Tinji Said Musa John.
I'm a carpenter. I've been doing this for more than 8 years now.
Ina sai da plantain na kai kimamin shekara 3.
I've been selling my tomatoes for about 10 years now, and I do it for a better Nigeria.
And I do it for a better Nigeria.
Ina wannan sana'ar lemu ne domin Nigeria ta ci gaba. Ina sa domin Nigeria ta kyau. And you can see how we are doing our small little work to make Nigeria great.
As you can see, I'm a technician and I'm doing it to help myself and to help my generation.
Ina zaune ne a Plateau na business. Kuma ina yin wannan domin ci gaban ƙasar Najeriya.
For a better Nigeria. This message is from the National Orientation Agency. Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. All our 4 guests are still with us, and we appreciate the tweets that have come in. Nadabo and I will quickly go through those tweets so that the ideas therein could form part of the conversation. Dele Jack Solomon tweets, federal government has to implement such resolutions as will be reached by the various judicial panels of inquiry being set up.
Oladimeji Morufu says, it would be good if their findings are not swept under the carpet.
Jolly Wesley tweets, the Judicial Panel of Inquiry is the right step in the right direction. The question is, will proper and adequate findings at the panel be dealt with accordingly?
And for Badamasi Haruna here, our regular Twitter, It's a commendable effort by states, but what matters most is the implementation of the reports, as is a recurring decimal in Nigeria.
Jibril Naina Twist, from the various panels' first sittings, which I have seen, I believe they will deliver fairly and justly. Justice needs to be done to the police, especially the families of those who were killed during the protest for no reason.
Leo Fadaka tweets that Judicial Panel of Inquiry on Police Brutality is the right step to take, and we pray the final report will be interference-free and holistically transparent to avoid recurrence and build confidence between the government and the people. God bless Nigeria.
Sylvester O.N., that's the Twitter handle. Emphasis is right now on the Judicial Panel on Police Brutality, and no one is emphasizing or seeing to the welfare package of policemen, that to be sure that the welfare packages will be implemented, forgetting that it's a necessity if good policing is expected of them. Let's get this clear. The Judicial Panel of Inquiry is not the same panel or organ or committee that is working on police welfare. The government is also dealing with that.
Yes,
let's be clear about that, yes.
Mutana Farouk tweets that the judiciary panels of inquiry on police brutality, I mean he's referring to judicial panels that is, should be just and neutral in their investigative proceedings and judgments. However, we should try to encourage the police to do their job. We shouldn't demoralize the good job of the police because of a few bad eggs among them.
Raji Afiz Abidemi says this is a good move.
That's a very short one there. And Festus Hakim Boyewa says President Buhari is sincere in asking states to set up judicial panels to investigate police brutality. The judicial panels must therefore hold the police to account and government must not shield anyone indicted by the panels.
Law Alpha say it's a good move to set up the panel. Actually, there are panels, but it would be better and justifiable to make the panels independent and adopt their recommendations. Now, this is the question I'm going to ask Abdul Rahman, to make the panels independent and adopt their recommendations. A priori, you cannot be saying adopt their recommendations. Now, let's just walk us through what we should expect. We know that there are different commissions of inquiry, each of them set up under different laws. And as Rami indicated, they have their TOR, which is terms of reference, which will guide ultimately the handling of their recommendations. But what would we expect if we were to use the Human Rights Commission committee, if you like, or panel rather, as a model and say, look, after they finish their sittings, what would follow?
Okay, thank you. What we should expect, we should be able to have identity of police personnel based on the findings of these panels that may have violated the human rights of citizens. Then I think we should be able to establish what type of human rights violations have occurred by these police operatives, and we should be seeing appropriate compensation, maybe in terms of monetary compensation, maybe in terms of apology, and things like that. And also, we should be seeing recommendations with respect to the reform of the Nigerian police, especially how do we ensure that the Nigerian police has appropriate facilities for them to be able to do their job, because we understand from experience that facilities are not sufficient, they are not adequate in terms of equipment and facilities required for investigation, different kind of investigation, forensic analysis, and all what have you. And we going through the various state criminal justice law, as well as the Federal Capital Criminal Justice Administration, there are certain ways and procedures by which police and other law enforcement officials are expected to carry out investigation. And but these require structures. They also require facilities, and most of these structures and facilities they are not available. So we should expect recommendations on how police will be better resourced. Even though we have so many of these recommendations in previous reports, and I hope that at the end of all this, the competent authorities should be able to sit together and find a way by which the police can be provided and can be adequately resourced to enable them carry out their function. Then one other key issue has to do with funding. Most people have been recommending that the police requires more funding. There's no doubt about that. In fact, in every aspect of human life, probably you may need to increase the level of the fund. But increase in fund is not sufficient. It's not enough. Then even the present level of funding, how are we sure that this money gets to police stations that need this money to be able to perform their functions? We all know that if you go to any police station now, they will ask you, being biro, being file. If you want to go for investigation, they will ask complainants to fund these investigations. And more often than not, complainants, they are people that don't even have anything. So at the end of the day, I think we should be seeing a comprehensive, and just as Dr. Kabiru said, it's important that we have a whole of government approach to how we want to reform the Nigerian police.
Thanks a lot, but there's still something missing. When the panel concludes its work, I'm more particular now about the Human Rights Commission panel. At the state level, of course, the report will be submitted to the governor. The governor will take it to the State Executive Council, which will then review it and then issue a white paper. Of course, set up a committee to advise it, and then a white paper is issued on the recommendations. How would that of the Human Rights Commission panel work? To whom will the panel submit its report, and thereafter, what next?
Of course, the panel would submit its report to the office of the president, because it is a federal funded agency. But it will not stop at that. Just if you recall what the National Human Rights Commission has been doing with respect to the 2018-2019 panel. So there may be some issues coming up from the recommendations of this panel, which are specifically targeted at certain government agencies. For example, like the Police Service Commission. So Police Service Commission is expected to receive these reports, particularly with respect to discipline, of police officers that may have been indicted. Then where we have the needs to criminally prosecute those that may have been found to have violated human rights, so such recommendations will go to the office of the Attorney General of the Federation or of the state, as the case may be. But some of these issues may have to be state issues, some may have to be federal issues. So some of these recommendations will go to these authorities. And also some will even go to the Ministry of Police Affairs. And right now, the National Human Rights Commission is working closely with Police Service Commission, with the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, and also with the Ministry of Police Affairs, to ensure that at the end of the day, we are able to, one, provide redress and remedies for victims of violations, and also to be able to take appropriate action with respect to the discipline and, where necessary, prosecution of officers that are found to have violated the human rights of Nigerians.
Well, many thanks, Abdurrahman Yakub. We thank you so much for that insight. Dr. Kabiru Adam, let's talk about states who are yet to get these, panels on board. Does that mean that there are no violations? They're going by what you heard and what you see, monitoring these things? Or what's the feeling to date, almost 2 weeks into when these instructions were given, that some states are yet to have these, panels constituted?
Frankly, I haven't had any, I would say, negative feedback from the residents of the state. We all know that at the beginning of the NSAS protest, there was a seeming division between, some parts of the southern half of the country and some northern states where there was a perception that, in fact, a couple of governors came out from the northern half of the country to say they want SAS, a reformed SAS. So perhaps the level of brutality, and I say this with all the responsibility, in some of the northern states were not as bad as in some of the southern states. So maybe that is what is informing this, unwillingness, as it were, by some of the states to set up their panels of inquiry. Having said that, it is a presidential directive, and I'm hoping that the states will still go ahead for administrative purposes, set up the panels, and then provide the platforms. If at the end of the day, after setting up the panels, no petitions are submitted, then of course they have given the platform, and then it is now a conclusion that perhaps there are no petitions. But where they don't set it up, then it is assumed that perhaps they've not provided the opportunity for petitioners or people who feel aggrieved for one reason or the other to now submit their petitions. But then having said that, I think this is an opportunity to tell residents of those states, even where the governors do not go up to set up the panels, to take advantage of the federal panel by the National Human Rights Commission to submit their petitions.
All right, thanks, Kabir. Now let's return to Frank Tietie. Frank, well, I've read some comments trying to draw an analogy between the judicial panels of inquiry being set up now and the Oputa panel, which was equivalent of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We may not have enough time to get into the details of this, but what would you suggest? I do know that, of course, states have the powers under their various laws to set up commissions of inquiry, but what, in your opinion, would make the implementation of the accepted recommendations by the various panel enforceable against the background of the Supreme Court decision which made the implementation of the Oputa panel unenforceable and unimplementable?
Thank you very much. I do not think that the goal of these panels that have been set up is to the extent that they will exercise such independence, to the extent that they will take decisions and then also go ahead to enforce those decisions. No, it's not like that. We run a national police system, and let us not presume that the police fails to discipline its own, and then they also fail to presume again that the Police Service Commission fails to discipline its own. And so we find a very difficult situation where you have a presidential panel, as it was in 2018, and which submitted its report to the president for the purpose of implementation. One would have expected that an independent body like the Police Service Commission could have taken steps to handle some of those specific cases that were mentioned in that report. Also, the police itself, led by the Inspection General of Police, should have set up an internal mechanism to deal with those specific issues. Then we also expect, even though I am personally disappointed, where the Attorney General of the Federation says that where those that were recommended for the purpose of prosecution, he felt that there was not enough pieces of evidence to prosecute them. Do not forget that it wasn't the responsibility, the technical responsibility of the panel to present, the technical pieces of evidence that would be necessary, that would be needed for prosecution. It is the responsibility of the Office of the Attorney General to review and to make such demands. Don't remember, we have a provision and we have in our laws what is referred to as circumstantial evidence. So are you saying that when you say that there is not enough evidence to prosecute, are you saying you do not believe the testimonies that have been given on oath to the panel. So these are facts. And you know, in law, we consider facts to be sacred. So in terms of implementing the report, the buck lies on the office, on the president himself. The president, it took too long for our own thinking that it took between the time the president, they received the report on the panel he set up and the time the NSAS protest started. It was too long. But even though the president was very swift in directing that directing the Attorney General and the Inspector General of Police to ensure that the recommendations of that report the recommendations were put in, were actually carried out. The president did that immediately. He give it to him. But it took too long. So we expect a change in approach on the part, particularly of the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. And we expect that the Police Service Commission and the Inspector General of Police do not need further directives from the president before they act on these things. They can carry out independent and internal, panels or committees to ensure that these things are, these recommendations are implemented. But not to say that we don't have enough evidence. No. That is defeatist.
All right, Frank. Thanks a lot, Frank. I just, Notable, since we was talking about enforcement and implementation and the roles of relevant agencies or authorities, Romy, the Police Service Commission here is very important. I asked the question earlier, what is the attitude of the Police Service Commission to all of this? And your response is that it's a healthy one, it's supportive and all that. But at the end of the day, the Police Service Commission is the employer of the cops, other than the Inspector General of Police, who has his office at the pleasure of the President. And the point is, what to do with the recommendations? Would you await further directives? The Federal Civil Service Commission wouldn't await further directives on the president to act on any disciplinary matter, for instance. We know that this is a system-wide issue, but what should we envisage the Police Service Commission to do? Because in a sense, these are extraordinary times, and these are also extraordinary circumstances leading to the establishment of the various panels and the reports and recommendations that they might toss up.
Absolutely so. I think your question is dead on the mark. What is the primary responsibility of the Police Service Commission is to to appoint, to promote and discipline police officers in the country, except the Inspector General of Police. So yes, it falls squarely on the plate of the Police Service Commission. And this is where I would want to do some bit of advocacy on behalf of the Commission. Yesterday, for example, we were at the National Parliament, that is the National Assembly, to defend the budget of the Police Service Commission. One thing kept on coming very, very clear, and that is the issue of the reach of the Commission. The Commission is principally here in Abuja. The Commission has been talking about the need to have operational zonal offices. When you have zonal offices that are operational, what it means is that citizens can walk into the Police Service Commission and make complaints. You see, what we are having now is some kind of an aberration. We don't have to set up a panel of judicial panels of inquiry to hear about police misconduct. If the Police Service Commission had been empowered and resourced to be at every nook and cranny of this country where the police is, especially at the zones, then, and when citizens are also aware of the existence and powers of the Police Service Commission, what they will do is continuously moving to lay complaints. These panels of inquiries we are raising here and there, the law has already provided the Police Service Commission to be in charge of this and to look at this. What is the problem is that the Police Service Commission is yet to be resourced and empowered. Gentlemen, it's not about the appearance of a commission. It's about the functionality of it. And this has brought some kind of a lesson for us Nigerians. We asked the parliamentarians and government to rise up to the occasion. The issue of accountability mechanisms within the police is something that this country hasn't gotten right yet. We have it right in terms of the structures, but we have it awfully wrong in terms of activating it. I would think we should activate it, make it in a manner that everywhere a police officer does something that is wrong, that cannot be internally handled, the Police Service Commission should be a stone throw away.
All right.
And as long as that is not there yet, we'll keep on battling with this, and I hope we don't come back to this conversation again. We have a fantastic opportunity, like I said, we had a National Assembly yesterday, and I'll continue the advocacy here that the National Assembly should rise up to the task and resource the Police Service Commission so that we do not have these issues come up again.
Rami,
the constitutional body has already been done.
Rami, thanks a lot. Your points are noted. Dr. Kabir, very, very briefly, I mean, you are used to our format. On one of your appearances, you said succinctly that the NSAS protests was a show of displeasure at the misconduct of some officers, but that we need the police institution, regardless of the displeasure shown against the misconduct of some of the officers. On that occasion, we were discussing the morale of the police officers. How do we obviate a situation where the proceedings at the judicial panels of inquiry do not further dampen the enthusiasm or morale of otherwise hard-working cops on the beat?
In simple terms, provide a platform either to tweak the terms of reference of the panels themselves to accommodate the 22 officers that were killed, or to have an independent body, perhaps somewhere, somehow, to listen to the complaints of those 22 officers that were killed.
Thank you so much, Kabiru Ademu, security expert. You've been part of us always. I don't know whether you're going to... You know, we may issue an ID card anyway. That's a good one. Thank you so much for being part of this program this morning.
It's my pleasure.
Romy Mahom, it's a pleasure. He's a honorable commissioner that is of human rights at the Police Service Commission. It's a pleasure being with us. So thank you so much for coming to Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Abraham Yakubu, Director, Civil and Political Rights Department, National Human Rights Commission. We thank you so much for being part of this program this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So also a big thank you goes to Frank Tete there. Frank Tete is a human rights lawyer and executive director, Citizens Advocacy for Social and Economic Rights. We thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And a very big thank you, too, for you out there for being part of this package this morning. We hope you're going to keep the date with us tomorrow. And we come your way with another topic and a set of guests. I am Yusuf Dadabosman.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolord. Have a nice day.